What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk about Marvel every day. It's very clear that at this point in time, Marvel Studios is actively working on the new X-Men in the MCU, and they're working on the new X-Men movie that is supposed to be coming after Avengers Secret Wars. Avengers Secret Wars comes out May 7th of 2027, but Marvel Studios has already announced that they have dates for movies already reserved for July 23rd, 2027 and November 5th, 2027. So since Marvel Studios is working on the X-Men movie right now in preparation for the ending of Secret Wars and the beginning of the next saga, we believe that one of these two slots is probably the X-Men movie, and the other is possibly for Black Panther 3. Black Panther 3 has officially been announced, but we're hearing it's going to be coming after Avengers Secret Wars, with Marvel Studios possibly using the multiverse to give us a new T'Challa in the MCU going forward after Secret Wars with a soft reboot. So those two dates could be X-Men and Black Panther 3. And according to a recent rumor, these movies might share the same villain, and that villain could be Magneto. But the big part of the rumor is that Denzel Washington could play Magneto. Now, right away, I know some people aren't going to like this, because if they do decide to go with Denzel Washington as Magneto, they're going to have to change his backstory. His whole backstory with the Holocaust, that's going to have to be changed. And I know a lot of people, especially the comic book fans, are going to be kind of upset with this. But I do want to stress right now that this is just a rumor. It is coming from Jeff Snyder. He talked about it yesterday on the John Rocha show when they were talking about a lot of other X-Men castings that they have actually heard. And I'll take you through everything they said so we have a good understanding of what's going on here. And then we have to talk about that backstory and how Marvel Studios might go for a little bit more of a modern take with Magneto. But right away, just hearing that Denzel Washington could play Magneto in the MCU, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, whether good or bad, in the comments down below. Let me know how you feel. So like I mentioned, this is coming from the Hot Mic podcast with Jeff Snyder and John Rocha. Jeff Snyder is the one who reported that he had heard a rumor that Harris Dickinson was being eyed for the role of Cyclops, and Julia Butters could be portraying Kitty Pryde, and also Sadie Sink might be Jean Grey. He reported that a while ago. So he's clearly hearing things about the X-Men, but I'll remind you, Marvel Studios does meet with a lot of people for a lot of different roles, and yes, they might be eyeing particular actors, but that doesn't mean that it always works out. Sometimes the actors aren't available schedule-wise, or sometimes they do a read and it doesn't actually work out. But those are the names that we've heard so far as the X-Men cast that could possibly happen, and now we're hearing Magneto. In the podcast, they are talking about the X-Men castings, and then Jeff Snyder says, you know what, I don't even care anymore, F it, I'm just going to put it out there. He says, at this point, we know Denzel is going to be coming to the MCU. He's talked openly about this, and this is true. He has already confirmed that he is going to be in Black Panther 3. He talked to Ryan Coogler about it. And he even said that he had to call up Ryan Coogler and apologize for spoiling that he was going to be in Black Panther 3, so that's confirmed. But Jeff Snyder continues and says, but we don't know who he is in Black Panther 3. So it's totally possible that he could be playing an X-Men character in Black Panther 3, couldn't he? Then on the podcast, he says, do you guys want to do the leak there? Do you want to do the math? Then he says, Denzel could be the villain of the X-Men. And then John Rocha says, so he could be Magneto. Then Snyder said, I think it's a possibility. So this isn't him even coming out and stating, hey, I heard that the character that Denzel Washington is actually going to play is Magneto. It's him saying he thinks it might be the case. So this is not confirmed by any means. Treat it as a rumor. But here's the thought or theory around what Marvel Studios could do if they do indeed get Denzel Washington to play Magneto. They would have to scrap his Holocaust background, the whole story of him and the Holocaust and his origin, basically, which some people argue that you kind of have to do now since World War II and the Holocaust took place a pretty long time ago at this point. Magneto is around 14 years old during World War II, which is in 1944, believed to be born on or closely next to 1930. If they stuck to this, he would be almost 100 years old in the MCU based on our current timeline and where we're at in time in the MCU. So of course, a lot of people think that naturally that is too old. So the thought process here is to switch from a Holocaust Jewish background to a more modern story of Magneto played by Black actor Denzel Washington, who has a civil rights background. Now, Denzel Washington has the chops, and if you remember, there was also a rumor going around for a while that Giancarlo Esposito could be playing Magneto as well, and people seem to actually like that idea. And the idea is probably pretty similar, if not exactly the same, for Denzel Washington to play Magneto. Now, of course, Giancarlo Esposito is already confirmed to be in Captain America: Brave New World, so he's out of the equation, and Denzel Washington could play the character. Denzel Washington is incredibly talented. He's one of, I would say, probably the most talented actors out there. He's been around for a very long time, and now he is 70 years old. When Ian McKellen debuted as Magneto in the X-Men movie, he was 61 years old, so not too far off. However, there is an issue with this, and yes, some people might take a pretty big issue with the backstory being completely changed if they go this direction, but the problem is actually with Denzel himself. He himself said that he was going to retire pretty soon. In fact, that is how we found out that he was going to be in Black Panther 3. He was talking about all of the movies that he was going to do, and then he was going to retire. He essentially started to list his final movies, and whilst going through that list, he then said, then I'm going to do Black Panther 3 with Ryan Coogler. But the whole point of the list was that he only has so many left before he actually retires as an actor. Everybody else that we've heard Marvel Studios is eyeing for right now for the X-Men are super young. They're clearly going to go with a younger X-Men team here, probably early to mid-20s. And again, Denzel Washington is 70 years old. And yes, Magneto and Professor X are older than the good majority of the X-Men. But an age gap between 25 years old and 70 years old is still pretty big. And the fact that he said himself he's going to retire probably means that this isn't going to happen. Again, I think Denzel Washington could probably play almost any role and do it exceptionally well. And if they wanted to kind of do a twist on Magneto's backstory and make it about civil rights instead of the Holocaust, Denzel Washington would be a great actor for that. But it sounds like he wants to retire, and we're in the multiverse saga right now, and we're going to be getting a new universe in some way, shape, or form when Secret Wars ends. I think there is a way that you could get away with having a Magneto in the new MCU with his original origin story. I mean, look at the Fantastic Four First Steps. They're in another universe right now that, although it is in the 60s, it seems very, very advanced, possibly even more advanced than the current 616 universe. And the reason being for this, we've heard, is because the universe that they are in never experienced the Dark Ages. And you also have to realize that time is indeed a factor for the multiverse as well. It's not just different universes, but it's also the time that those different universes are in. And again, the perfect example of that is the Fantastic Four. They are in the 60s, while right now the main MCU is in the 2020s. So when they get pulled over from their universe into ours, they're going to go from the 60s to the mid 2020s. And I don't see why you couldn't do that for Magneto. Yesterday, we heard from insider Daniel RPK that Marvel Studios was not going to go the origin story route for the X-Men. When we see them in the MCU, they will already have been a team, at least some core members. So skipping the origin story for some of the X-Men, you could kind of do that with Magneto, but touch upon it just a little bit since that's such a big part of who he is. But it clearly seems like when we get this new universe that has the X-Men in it all of a sudden, because our universe never had the X-Men in it, it's kind of going to be as if the universe had always been this way. But if the Magneto from this universe comes from a different point in time and is a little bit younger still, then it could definitely work. Again, the multiverse kind of makes almost anything possible, including getting a younger Magneto with his true origin story from the comics appearing in the new universe. So again, anything is possible. Denzel Washington could play Magneto. They could change his backstory. But since Denzel said he wants to retire, I'm assuming they're going to go in a different direction, and he's probably playing Achebe, the villain of Black Panther 3. But if this would happen, what would you think about it? Would you like it? Would you not like it? Denzel Washington as Magneto. Go ahead, leave all your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Marvel news, rumors, or leaks. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.